On this episode of According to Metal, we talked with anticipation last episode about Myrath's new album, Legacy. Did it live up to the hype? We review that, plus Last in Line's debut album, and Holy Grail's new one. We interview Markus Maichel from the progressive band Dante, who has a new album coming out in March. Can't wait to hear that. Plus, news in the world of metal involving turtles and cats. I'm serious. Grab a drink, grab your genitals, grab both. It's According to Metal. Let's go.
News, reviews, interviews, and all things metal. From the Kensington Place Studios, it's According to Metal with Jason and Biz.
Welcome to According to Metal, news, reviews, interviews, and all things metal. From the Kensington Place Studios, I'm your host, Jason, and joining me in the Southern Command portion of the Kensington Place Studios is my guy, Biv. What's up, man?
What's going on?
So, welcome to the next episode of According to Metal, the second installment of this show. By the way, gotten some great feedback from a lot of you who have already listened to the show and have liked the Facebook page and followed us on Twitter, which, by the way, you could follow us on Twitter at ATMetalPod. I should probably say that right. At ATMetalPod. Also like the Facebook page, facebook.com/According to Metal. Click like. You're going to get all the stuff we talk about, some news, some reviews, some upcoming information you're going to want to know about the show. But we gotten some awesome feedback and made some pretty cool friends, right, Biv?
Oh, absolutely. Love to give a shout out to Lacey Mucklow at LadyObscure.com. She's gave us some great feedback, and you want to talk about somebody who knows her metal. Our girl Lacey certainly does.
She does, and then, we have, of course, Lance King on the program last episode, and really interested and excited to talk later on in the program with Markus Maichel from Dante. And speaking of Dante, that's a band that many of you may have never heard of before in your life, and you're going, who are these guys? And I want to touch on that really quick, because we got some feedback, and it was good, don't get me wrong, but we got some feedback last week of, hey, I like how you talked about some bands that kind of fly under the radar, and I'm sitting there going, We reviewed Dream Theater, Megadeth, Avantasia, and Primal Fear. Not necessarily, maybe not household names for the average person, but in the metal community, pretty big acts. And one of the things, and I can let Biv talk about this a little bit more too, because, heck, you had an idea a couple years ago to do a podcast called Metal Sonar, which is looking at metal bands that kind of fly under the radar that people just aren't hearing because A, it's metal and it's not mainstream, and B, today, now more than ever, there's bands all over the place, but it's so hard to really be able to get your music heard and discovered. And that's what we want to make sure we touch on the show, too. So, our reviews are going to be a mixture of some big names and some names hopefully you've never heard of before, some bands that you need to hear of that we haven't really talked much about.
That's what Biv's Best Band is all about. Biv's Best Band that you've never heard of is about really... let's expose some bands to you that you may not have heard of, that probably most of you haven't heard of, and you're going to love this one this week. It's one that I guarantee 98% of you have never heard of, and it was a band that reached out to me and said, hey, check out our CD, and I get those all the time, and most of them are this one was amazing, and I can't wait to give them some publicity.
No, and that's really cool. And by the way, speaking of that, before we forget about it, I'm sure we'll talk about it later on in the segment, but if you are a band, you want to get your stuff heard, if you think you qualify or should qualify for Triple B, Biz Best Bands, send us an email at accordingtometal at gmail.com. Just send us an email, accordingtometal at gmail.com, and send us your stuff. We'd be more than happy to at least check it out, and if we think it makes the cut, we'll make sure we put it on the show. But Huey Lewis, you ready for the news?
Oh, absolutely. Let's do it.
It's time to give you some headlines. The metal news you need to know right now.
On every episode of According to Metal, we talk about the latest news, the latest headlines going on in the metal world. Biv, what's going on, man?
Well, on the last episode, we talked about how awesome the new Megadeth CD Dystopia is. We both gave it high marks. We both talked about how much we enjoyed it. We talked about how strong some of the tracks were. And we were both really excited by it. And I think as metal fans, we both kind of look forward to maybe even catching them live. And as a lot of fans do, it's one of the great things about metal is going to the shows, right? I mean, that's what we do. So this past week, they kicked off their North American leg of the Dystopia World Tour, and their set list included out of 16 songs that they performed, one was off of Dystopia, just one. And the thing about that is if this were a weak album, if this were something that they were just kind of mailing in, I might feel differently. But this is a great CD, and many in the metal community seem to be agreeing with us. A lot of 8.5 out of 10s, 9 out of 10s, 4.5 out of 5s out there. In fact, this is their best-selling CD since 1992, when Countdown to Extinction came out. And they sold 48,000 copies in its initial week. So clearly, this is a strong CD, but yet they only play one song off of the new CD. To me, that just doesn't compute, Jason. What do you think?
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, this, to your point, is almost everyone thought this album was good unless you were butthurt over the lyrical content. But it was a great album. We rated it very well. Many people across the board have thought it's really good. Megadeth fans across the board think it's a great album. To play one freaking song off of the new CD makes no sense whatsoever. It's stupid.
No, in fact, it makes you question: Are you on a greatest hits tour, or are you on a dystopia tour? And
you do have a new album that's out, Megadeth. Am I right, or maybe I'm missing something?
Yeah, you're supposed to be promoting that new album, and the thing of it is you've got two new members in your band, right? You got Kiko Loureiro on guitar, who obviously played on the entire album, as well as Chris Adler on drums, and so you've got two guys. You really want to showcase them. You want to welcome them to the band. And what do? They have to go back and play the catalog of all of your songs from the past 30 years, which is fine. I understand wanting to play the classics. And if it's your first time ever seeing Megadeth, maybe you want to hear some of those classics. But the vast majority of those fans, this is their 8th time seeing Megadeth, right? I mean, this is not going to be your first Megadeth show in all likelihood. So to me, it just absolutely doesn't make sense. Now, by comparison, there was another story that came out a few days later, about Judas Priest. In fact, it was a Rob Halford interview about wanting to do a new record because they enjoy the writing process, the recording process, and then going out and playing those songs live. And if you go back and look at their set list on their tours, they typically play at least 3 to 4 tracks off of every CD that they're in support of. So, Jason, I just don't understand it. I really don't. And as a Megadeth fan, do I really want to pay outrageous ticket prices to hear the same songs that I've heard every tour since, Peace Sells?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, when you look at their set list, there's songs like She-Wolf on there from the Cryptic Writings album. You could replace that with Dystopia. You could replace that with The Threat Is Real. I mean, there's a handful. They play Fatal Illusion. It's the only song they play off of the new record, which is a good song, but you could do Dystopia or The Threat Is Real easily. In fact, you could almost open your freaking concert with The Threat Is Real. It's a great track, but they're not doing it, and it doesn't make any sense. And to Judas Priest, or Rob Halford's point, I actually saw Judas Priest in their last tour, the Redeemer of Souls tour, in which they played, and I'll be honest with you, I love Judas Priest, but I didn't really get into their new album. So when they were, when they were playing live, they must have done 4 or 5 songs off of Redeemer of Souls, in which I'm like, I don't know this stuff as well. But they still played it anyway, and this is a band who's been around forever. And I compare that to Iron Maiden, who's also a band who is insisting on continuing to write new music. And let's face it, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden could just go around once a year, once every other year throughout the world, and Maiden could play Fear of the Dark, and could play The Number of the Beast, and could play Hallowed be thy name, and people would show up and no one would care, but yet they don't do that. They continue to write new stuff. In fact, I saw them when they did A Matter of Life and Death, which they did that album from the beginning to the end, that tour, and it pissed some old-timers off, and they're like, F you, we don't care. We have a new album, we're psyched about the new album, we think it's going to sound frickin' awesome live, and if you don't like it, don't frickin' come. And next time we come around, we're going to do the Somewhere Back in Time tour, and if you want to listen to a dinosaur nostalgic tour, we'll frickin' do that next time. But until then, we're going to do this. F off. And that's what they do. That's what Priest does. And you have Megadeth, which is doing the exact opposite. They're doing a greatest hits tour, and to your point, Biv, if you just release Super Collider, which is a big piece of crap, if you release that as an album, you go, yeah, let's not play in many songs off of that one. But instead, you have a great album, an album that many people feel is the best album you've done in 20 years, and you play one song off of it. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm sure Dave Mustaine's not, overly concerned, and I'm sure he's not clicking refresh on the blabbermouth.net forum pages about people up in arms over Megadeth's newer tour. I'm sure he doesn't care that 37-year-olds sitting in their basement eating, Mountain Dew, or, drinking Mountain Dew Kickstart and eating Cheetos in their basement are pissed off that they're not playing more than one song off of the Dystopia album. But it just doesn't make any sense to do that. And Dave has a very, there is no pattern we should follow when we go out on tour. We're just going to play a set list we want to play. It's all well and good, but don't be surprised if people don't show up like you'd like to expect them to. And considering as good of an album as this is, you're screwing it up. And I hope they realize a couple shows into it, that's a bad idea. Maybe we should actually play more shit off the new album, but who knows?
Well, in fact, there was a quote I was going to bring up from Dave Mustaine about this very topic. He says, a lot of times you have people saying, oh, you got to play a Tote Le Monde, or your biggest song, or you got to play Trust. That's your number one hit. You got to do this. You got to do that. He says, I ain't got to do nothing. And listening to the fans, what they like, and listening to what I like, between the two of us, one of us is going to be right. And when it comes down to playing stuff that makes me feel good, I like playing the heavy stuff. Well, that's fine, Dave. But who are your paying customers? Your paying customers are the ones who are telling you, right now, this is not acceptable on any level. If you want to classify it as a greatest hits tour and do that and play Vegas, fine. But at least have truth in advertising. This is not the Dystopia tour. That happens to be your latest release, but that's not what you're promoting right now with this set list.
It makes no sense at all whatsoever.
None. So, a complete opposite to this is Dream Theater's going on tour, and they're going to play the entire Astonishing double CD live. Now, that might be the other extreme, because you're not going to hear all of the other classics. But again, how many people, this is their first time seeing Dream Theater? Probably not too many. These are people who have seen Dream Theater, 10 times, or at least a couple of times. So, I'm not suggesting you have to play the entire CD, but I am suggesting probably at a minimum 3 songs.
I agree, and I also say this. I've seen Dream Theater twice, and I'll tell you right now, I would gladly and would really like to check out their North American tour when they play at the Astonishing, because I think, we talked about this on last episode, about how, I guess, accessible or digestible, if that's even a word, the new album is, but yet in a live setting, I bet it's absolutely going to be effing amazing. And I would love to hear that in its entirety live with the show and the lights and the, I'm sure the theatrics and all the things that Dream Theater is going to do. I'm totally for that. I actually would be more prone to go see the Astonishing album being played live than to go hear me, pull me under for the 10th time.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. In other newsworthy stories, Bruce Dickinson decided. Now, for those of you that don't know, Bruce Dickinson has a brand new double-decker 747 for the band, and it's a beautiful plane. It's for their tour, and the previous jumbo jetliner wasn't big enough, he says, for their current stage set. So he flies a turtle. Apparently it's an endangered turtle, and injured at that, from, I believe it was Spain, it was somewhere in Western Europe, to Florida. Now, Jason,